to Booze and Bourbon.
Welcome to Booze and Bourbon, a podcast where we talk about all things paranormal, and bourbon too. Now, here are your two ghostess hostesses with the mostest, Kim and Jen. Welcome back to another episode of Booze and Bourbon. I am Kim, and that is Jen. Hi, Jen.
Hi there.
How you doing this week?
Oh, just dandy. How are you?
Good. It's weird not to be filming this week, and I don't know what to do with my spare time. I've actually found lots of things to do with my spare time. Let's be honest, I have a problem. But besides that, things are good.
Well, that is good to hear. Are you Christmas decorating yet, or is that too
No.
premature? Okay.
It's Friday the 13th. I cannot Christmas decorate on Friday the 13th.
I guess. I mean, maybe that's a little bad luck, but I suppose you're right.
Yeah. I'm just going to wait a little bit. I've been going through all of my old Christmas decorations, and there are lots that I don't want to see ever again in my whole entire life. Yeah, I think this year, as much as I'm excited to decorate for Christmas because you get that nice glowing of the lights and stuff, I'm thinking simple. I'm going to do a banister, I'm going to do a Christmas tree, and a couple of Twinkie lights here and there, but that's it.
Okay. Just...
Yeah.
Taking her down a notch.
What about you?
I'm going to go full National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, I think. I'm going to go tacky AF. I'm just joking. I'm maybe not to the full extreme, but I feel like I might, I'm in the same stage as you where I have a lot of things that I don't really care for anymore. So I'm going to give those away and start fresh.
Sounds like a good plan. I don't know about you. There's not a whole lot we can actually talk about in regards to filming and stuff, but I have been on edge ever since we got home.
You're not the one with the board in your house currently, so a certain individual that lives here as well was very displeased with the fact that there was
I'm like, what board? What are you talking about? Oh, yeah, the Ouija board. Mm-hmm.
The squeegee board. Yes.
The squeegee board.
Yeah, it's currently just hanging out in the dining room. And he was not very impressed. He was like, what is that doing here? I was like, well, I volunteered to take it home. He was like, well, can it go stay out in the shed? And I was like, possibly. I was like, but it's fine as long as you don't open it. He's like, no, I still don't like it.
Don't open it. It has a friend in it, and if not one, it might have two.
We trapped them in there like a bunch of rats.
Sweet Jesus. Anyway, okay. So, guys, today's episode it's wild. Jen came across this topic. I've done my research on it too, and I really don't know what to say other than WTF.
Right.
So, horrific disasters have long been proven to draw out stories of the eternally restless from a tragic impact. As we've heard before, these tragedies can leave a lasting negative impact on the space surrounding the event. In this case in particular, it seems that such a massive number of deaths dealt within the blink of an eye, aka the Ishinomaki tsunami of 2011, made an everlasting impression on the water-washed ruins and rubble. Out of the twisted wreckage left behind with this event, countless bizarre stories of wandering dead souls, hauntings, and supernatural horror of terrifying possessions have littered the internet and have inspired a new Unsolved Mystery episode in season 2. On the show today, we're going to break down the events that occurred in the show, as well as ones that are probably too terrifying even for Unsolved Mysteries. Thanks, Jen.
Well, I do what I can.
Okay, and then for our bourbon of choice, I was looking for a 13, given and that is Friday the 13th, but we don't have one. So the closest one I could find is the Weller 12, and we have not covered that yet. So the Weller 12-year-old is just, another lovely Weller. I'm kind of disappointed that the Wellers all don't have cork pops, like cork popping pops, corks. God, they have screw caps. So I'm just going to unscrew my screw cap.
Wouldn't you, Weller?
For this lovely bourbon, it has a nice dark amber color, which I love. What else can I tell you about it? It smells like a dream come true. Cinnamon and sugar, some nuts in there, and definitely some cherry and obviously a lot of oak. So it smells really sweet. It's very flavorful. It's 45%. It doesn't like really kick you too hard. I can say that there's marzipan and cherries.
Marzipan. Well,
Yeah.
that's a good one.
Yeah. It's very, very tasty. It's a very good sipper.
I'm very jealous.
The Weller 12. Get on it. It's not just all about Antique 107, I guess,
No.
which I love as well.
I am a new Weller fan, though, I must say.
Oh, I know. It's so good.
Tasty selections.
Can't go wrong. You just can't. So, Jen, now that I have a warmer bourbon pocket, is it about that time?
Absolutely. Based on our topic, would you rather have been involved and, of course, passed away during a tsunami on our lovely coast that we have here on the Atlantic coast?
Okay.
And you come back and, of course, haunt your family members and friends like myself with, whatever you choose to do. Or would you rather have been in a landslide? I don't know if I'm trying to say landslide or avalanche. That was the word I was looking for.
Yeah. Okay.
An avalanche on the Whistler ski slopes, and you come back and haunt all the touristies that are out there enjoying their snowboarding, skiing, sledding, whatever.
All right. Well, I'm going to go with the avalanche. And although it would be a terrifying way to die, just like a tsunami would be, I would have been smothered by snow. Therefore, when or if anybody ever finds my body, I will be preserved like a mummy.
Oh, that's a good idea. Yes.
Yeah. So the other thing is too, like other people would just be maybe like drinking and having a nice little romantic getaway. And then I would boom, hey, and just beat the shit out of them.
I like it. I never thought about the preserving part. That's very crucial. Yes, I forgot about that.
Okay. So also going with our topic, would you rather be a woman who opens her door to the doorbell to find another woman in drenched clothes asking for towels? Or would you rather be the woman who opens her door to find a school-aged child clearly dead asking if they could sharpen a pencil in your house?
I'm going to go with the... See, I don't even think I have a sharpener, to be honest. So I probably would have said the child and the sharpening of the pencil, but because I don't even think I have that to offer, I'm going to have to go with the lady with the towels. Yeah.
And the thing is with that lady, as I didn't mention that she's clearly dead. So
true.
You might think that she's like still alive and well, and like you really are helping somebody
who needs towels.
Just after the break, we're going to get into today's main topic, which is extra spooky. Stay tuned.
Welcome back, everybody. And now for our super creepy topic, swept away. In March of 2011, tragedy struck Japan. A massive magnitude 9 earthquake tore through, generating a devastating tsunami that battered the coastal Tohoku region of the country's eastern coast and left death and destruction in its wake. As if the potent quake and resulting wave weren't bad enough, the Fukushima nuclear power plant was so badly damaged that it went into a nuclear meltdown that was to be one of the worst in history, poisoning the environment, its animals, its people, and causing lasting ripples that reverberate to this day. Thousands upon thousands of people were dead and many more injured or left homeless. The sound of screaming and crying, the background score to all of the carnage. The landscape had become a wasteland of broken debris, carcasses, smashed buildings, and shattered dreams, a shadowy skeleton of what it had once been. The ruthless tsunami had tossed cars, trees, and houses about as if mere playthings. There were trees cast far inland, or cars and boats dashed upon the tops of tall, destroyed buildings. Here among the rubble left behind by the grim disaster, those left living picked through it, all trying to slowly rebuild their lives while mourning the dead. And by all accounts, it seems that these restless dead were still with them in a sense. Not so long after the quake, a tsunami hit. There began to trickle in a variety of odd reports telling of encounters with the ghosts of those whose lives had been cut short in the tragedy. Witnesses spoke of seeing the phantoms of people lining up at abandoned supermarkets and shops that had been left in shambles. The ghosts of people lingering around places that they had frequented in life, especially locations where these spirits called home. Those have also been terrifying visions of ghostly figures frantically running inland as if from the waves, only to dissipate into thin air as they flee. Many people claim that they had been approached by people they had known in life but knew to be dead, who spoke to them briefly or asked for help before fading away right before their eyes. One elderly woman from Inagawa, who had died in the disaster, had the rather unsettling habit of showing up at a refugee camp for a casual cup of tea, with witnesses claiming that they hadn't had the heart to tell her she was dead. She apparently would leave behind wet splotches of seawater. Some even complained of sinister presences sitting heavily upon their chest as they lie in bed at night. Some of the creepiest reports have come from the affected region's taxi drivers, who increasingly claim that they were picking up the spirits of the dead. Here on these dark streets, taxi drivers have even now claimed to have picked up spectral passengers. One driver described how he picked up a young woman a couple of months after the disaster who had wished to go from Ishinomaki Station to the Minami-Hama district, an area that had been thoroughly erased from existence by the tsunami. When the driver told the woman that there was nothing left there to drive to, she calmly asked him, "Have I died?" before vanishing. Interestingly, none of the taxi drivers reported having felt any sense of fear at the time, most likely because they were convinced they were transporting real people, and in all cases, the phantoms were reported as being quite young. The phenomenon of phantom taxi drivers in Ishinomaki was studied by researcher Yuko Kudo, a senior at Tohoku University majoring in sociology, who as part of her graduation thesis interviewed 100 taxi drivers about any unusual experiences they had in the aftermath of the 2011 disaster. 7 of which came forth with their ghostly encounters, showing their logs where they had started the meter for a passenger only for it to become an unpaid fare when the ghost had vanished. One of the drivers said, "It is not strange to see a ghost here. If I encounter a ghost again, I will accept it as my passenger."
That is so sad.
I know, I feel really bad. Because I feel like that happened like so often. That's why people were so okay with it, because it was just like that regular of an occurrence.
Yeah. Other ghostly tales plagued the area for some time. Offices, homes, and shops were said to be haunted and frequented by the dead. Emergency services, who were in overdrive trying to provide relief to the survivors, reported being called to locations that had been long destroyed and abandoned, with no one even sure of how anyone could have made a call from that spot in the first place. People all over the area frequently complained of having ghosts cause mischief in their homes or suddenly appear to startle or frighten. There are headless ghosts and some missing hands or legs. Others are completely cut in half. People were killed in so many different ways during the disaster, and they were left like that in limbo. It takes a heavy toll on us. We see them as they were when they died. The cause of all this paranormal strangeness depends largely on who you ask. For those who believe in such thing as restless ghosts, these are what are often known of in Japan as the gaki, or hungry ghosts, which are believed to be the restless spirits of those who have died prematurely, often abruptly in anger or violence, and who like nothing more than to cause anguish and mischief for the living. For others, the cause is more scientifically rational. One idea is that all of this is caused by a post-traumatic stress disorder, with the ghosts being mental projections or hallucinations from the terror and stress that the witness has endured rather than any supernatural presence from the other side. Indeed, there have been several studies that show that people in an intense grieving state or suffering from PTSD have a tendency to experience such hallucinations. But how does this explain supernatural activity that others who perhaps were not directly involved with the disaster have seen? In the 4th episode of Netflix's newest season of Unsolved Mysteries, some people have come forward to talk about their experiences and weigh in on the strange happenings themselves. But what the show doesn't delve into is some of the stranger happenings that took place after the disaster. Yes, there were many reported ghost sightings, far more than other disasters, natural or otherwise, in Japan, such as the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. But many of the ghosts described on the show were simply adrift, not angry, and that wasn't always the case in reality. There actually were several violent possessions that weren't depicted in the show. Richard Lloyd Perry, a Tokyo-based journalist for the Times of London, reported on this phenomenon. His stories are wide and far-reaching, many of them more unsettling than the fairly commonplace ghost stories depicted in Unsolved Mysteries. Sure, there was a sighting of a lone woman standing in the middle of nowhere wearing a scarlet dress. There was an old neighbor who'd allegedly appear in her friends' homes and leave a saltwater stain on the cushion where she sat. But perhaps most shockingly, there was a builder. Perry gives the name Tashiki Ono, who says he was possessed. He'd growl like a beast, roll in the mud outside his house, stare at figures walking past his home. He'd turn repeatedly on his family, snarling, "Drop dead, everyone else is dead, so die." For answers, he went to Reverend Kaneda, the lovely, friendly-looking monk who appears in Unsolved Mysteries. According to Perry, the Reverend splashed Ono with holy water until his head went clear. He then revealed to Ono that the possession was possibly a punishment. Ono had traveled to the devastated area flippantly, eating an ice cream. "Something got a hold of you, perhaps the dead who cannot accept yet that they are dead," the Reverend told Ono. "They have been trying to express their regret and their resentment through you." Perry writes in his book that priests from multiple belief systems, including Christian, Shinto, and Buddhist, were called upon those months after the tsunami to quell unhappy spirits. It didn't necessarily matter whether these religious leaders believed in exorcisms, they were needed. In an interview with NPR, Perry explained, "I asked Reverend Kaneta about it once, and he said it doesn't matter whether ghosts really exist or not. He said what matters is that people believe in them. These experiences are real." He never said to people, "Pull yourself together. You're not really possessed. You're just, I think, sad. You know, that's the view I take too. It doesn't really matter whether you believe in ghosts. What's real is the suffering and pain." Unsolved Mysteries also never takes a close look at the Okawa Elementary School. Of the 75 students who died while at school during the tsunami, 75 were from Okawa, an unsettling truth that led parents to rail against larger bureaucratic failures. One Japanese magazine reported that after the disaster, kids would dare one another to travel to the elementary school grounds in search of the students' ghosts. One mother of an Okawa student consulted with a psychic, Perry reported. They traveled together to the school grounds, and after the mother tied decorations into the surrounding bamboo trees, the psychic told her that the deceased children were delighted with them. But he also described horrifying scenes of the veneer between life and death, describing that the dead were crawling on the ground near the school. Some of them were stuck in the water, covered in mud, and swallowing the dirty water in terrible suffering. That is so sad. Mm-hmm. Some of them were trapped and trying to get out, the mother described to Perry. That is unbelievable. I do not like that.
No, it is very sad. I obviously watched the episode, and that's what, I was intrigued and compelled to do a little bit more research at this. And there's actually, if you look into it, there's a bunch of YouTube videos where people are capturing some of what they believe are these ghosts from people who have passed in the tsunami. So there is quite a lot in there. But besides, obviously the taxi driver, as we mentioned above, there was a gentleman that they had on the episode that basically was explaining picking up a gentleman in wet soaking clothes who I guess he didn't really notice that he was dead at first until he got in the vehicle and he could tell that he wasn't alive. And then once he started driving, he realized when he glanced back again to look at him that he had disappeared. So that's going along with what they were saying about picking people up that were obviously unsure of whether or not they were alive or dead, which just makes it super sad, obviously, in general. But there was another lady who lived just basically like right at the cusp of where all the damage was done. So her home was still intact, and she would have people come to her door every night, pretty much every other night, in like sopping wet clothes. And they would be, in great distress and confused as to what was happening. And they'd be asking for dry clothes or something to dry off with. And she would always give them clothes and send them off because she actually did realize they were dead and felt bad for them. And she would always look out and watch as they walked away and then realize they would just disappear pretty much into thin air. So,
oh my God.
She did it for like a great deal of time. And there was actually another situation in there with a priest who had a woman come to him who she was a very what is our word? She's a very open spiritual person. So she was getting a lot of attachments, and she was overwhelmed with some of them might be kids, teenagers. There was a teenager looking for his mom. There was older people looking for their children. So she was just completely overwhelmed, and she went to see a priest, and he basically kept notes of everything that she was telling him to pass on to these people, which did in some cases obviously help some of these families with grieving and closure. But in her case, it was exhausting because she just had this happen all the time. So he had to help diffuse the situation. But yeah, it's insane how many stories there are. There's a lot more than what was on that episode, obviously. So
that is so sad. Well, thank you for enlightening me with that.
No worries. Just seems like something a little different with, natural disasters. They are something that happen quite frequently, but that was definitely one of the biggest. So,
yeah. It's awful. Okay. Let's talk about something that's nice and friendly and we love.
Okay.
That would be patrons.
Yes.
We got to do our patron shout out for the month.
Dun, 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 dun.
So thank you to Ginger and Shiona and Jamie and Paul and Aaron H and Justine and Andy and Cindy and Aaron with a B and Aaron with an E, the ABV Network, Rebecca, Stephanie, and the Ghost Story guys. Thank you all so very much for your support. And soon I will be able to send out some new stickers for y'all. So keep an eye out for those. And if I don't already have your address, please go into your Patreon and send us a note with your mailing address. Thank you. And Jen, where can people find more of Booze and Bourbon? Oh, wait.
Yes.
Tomorrow we're making our debut on Haunted.
Right.
Yes. So Eastlink TV, if you are in Canada and you're an Eastlink TV subscriber, make sure that you go check Eastlink out. I know here in Nova Scotia, it's channel 10 or 610, and it comes on Saturday at 10 p.m. Atlantic Standard Time.
Yay.
We might be playing Bloody Mary in the mirrors. I don't know, something like that.
It's a fun game. But yes, you can all find us on Instagram. We are also on Facebook, Booze and Bourbon the Podcast. We obviously are on any of the lovely podcast providers. We're also on ABV Network, so you can listen to us there if you do not have one of those apps. And we sometimes dabble with Twitter, but not really. And YouTube. We also dabble there as well.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for listening to today's episode. We can't thank you enough for listening to us. We don't really know why you do, but we're not going to question it any further. We love you.
Thanks, guys.
Booze and Bourbon is part of the ABV network. For more information or to advertise on the show, please head over to abvnetwork.com. Thanks for listening, and cheers.
This has been a Steve Akeley production.